Hey, everybody, this is So Many Sequels, your book club for movies. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
Today on the show, we're talking about 1 Hour Photo, a movie that you can't technically watch in 1 hour or less because it is just about 90 minutes or so, I believe.
Yeah.
But you can't watch it in an hour or less. This was our fan pick of the month for So Many Scares. We had a group of 16 that got narrowed down through our Instagram story polls at So Many Sequels Pod. And 1 Hour Photo is the winner. So that's what we're talking about this week.
Much
This
to our
movie-
surprise, let's be real. We've had a lot of conversations.
okay, yeah,
about it.
let's
Let's
say
just get
that.
into it because this is such a crazy pick, y'all. Where'd it come from?
Absolutely
Listen, we're
off
not
the
upset
wall.
about it, but we're surprised.
No.
We're very surprised.
There were so many movies and 1 Hour Photo. I didn't know that people knew this that well, I guess.
I feel like it's
still
the first
don't.
one people remember Robin Williams being not their memories. Like people of a certain age remember Robin Williams as Mrs. Doubtfire, as the genie, as so many of these fun characters, and then there's 1 Hour Photo, and I feel like people remember that one more than Insomnia and some of the other ones we'll talk about. But I think that one just stands out, and I think it's the hair. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was I think also this had decent enough marketing back in 2002. Like I think it got out, like people like it was sort of in the thing. Like, whoa, did you see that Robin Williams doing a scary movie? It was that type of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe so. So Robin plays Cy Parrish, and Cy, the photo guy, Parrish, has lovingly developed photos for the Yorkin family since their son was a baby. But as the Yorkins' lives become fuller, Cy's only seems lonelier until he eventually believes he's part of their family. When Uncle Cy's picture-perfect fantasy collides with an ugly dose of reality, what happens next has the spine-tingling elements of the best psychological thrillers. It's big words. Creepy movie. Kind of outdated now, just because not a lot of people go to the store to get their photos developed.
100%. Yeah.
But what was the reaction to this when it came out back in August of 2002, David? Did it do well at the BO? Did it have BO power?
It did all right. It did all right. Let's start by saying that. I believe that 1 Hour Photo sort of got its start in the the festival circuit, like it was at I don't know, it was at one of the big indie festivals, right? And then it got a limited release in August 23rd of 2002. And it opened in the number 24 spot that month with about 327,000. It would end up getting a wide release a few weeks later on September 13th, and would move all the way up to the number 3 spot with $8 million. I had that weekend pulled up, but for whatever reason, won't refresh right now. Here it is. The number one movie, let's just talk about that September 13th wide release. The number one movie that weekend was Barbershop, which brought in $20.6 million. Number 2 movie was still My Big Fat Greek Wedding in its 22nd week with 10.7. 1 Hour Photo, like I said, was in the number 3 spot, up from 13 the week before. Here's a great 1-2 combo for you. So you have 1 Hour Photo, and then number 4 that weekend, you had Swim Fan, which brought in $6 million. You guys remember Swim Fan?
I do remember Swim Fan. I didn't see it, but I remember it.
This was sort of one of those like stalker movies, and it was it was all internet based because the internet was a hot topic back then. And then at number 5, you had Stealing Harvard, which debuted with $6 million.
Now that I remember.
Wow. There is a range there in that box office. Let me tell you what.
Definitely. 1 Hour Photo would go on to make $31.5 million in its U.S. run, which is the equivalent of about $55 million in 2024. It brought in $20 million from overseas for a worldwide total of $52 million on a budget of about $12 million. So,
all of that
I
went
would
to
say
Robin.
that's pretty good. I would say maybe. Robin's he was a pretty artistically creative guy. Had a lot of integrity. I wouldn't be surprised if he took a small paycheck for this.
I agree.
But yeah, only $12 million on the film. So I would consider that a pretty good success for this movie to bring in about 52 worldwide. And that's the equivalent. That $12 million budget, that would be about a $20 million budget in 2024. It was the number 83 movie of 2002 with that $52 million finish, which was just good enough to be behind Murder by Numbers and just ahead of Halloween Resurrection. The number one movie of 2002 was Spider-Man, which I believe we reviewed way back in like season 1, I believe. So many sequels. Number two that year was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, another movie we've reviewed conveniently enough. One of my first, I think, season 4 maybe. I think we led off with Lord of the Rings. And number three, well, I'll tell you what, this was a big year for franchises. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones in the number 3 spot. And number 4 that year was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And number 5, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, $241 million.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's your 2002. I'll give you a few other horror movies that came out in that year, 2002. We had Queen of the Damned, again, Halloween Resurrection. I'll throw in Resident Evil in there. Red Dragon, Signs was a big movie that year. And probably the biggest pure horror movie of the year, The Ring, came out in 2002. So 2002, not a bad year for horror films or thrillers or however you want to classify them. But yeah, that's your box office roundup for 1 Hour Photo.
Had either of you seen this movie?
I had not.
I had.
What do you think?
Listen.
Because you got like, when did you see it? Did you see it the first time when it around the time it came out? Like, what's your relationship with this movie? I guess
I wouldn't necessarily say there's a strong relationship there. I definitely remember realistically, I probably rented it at Blockbuster at some point in time and watched it is how I got it, or had my parents rent it. More likely, I don't think I could rent it at the time, but
a rated R movie.
yeah. And so I'm probably rented it or got it on Netflix if it was doing the mailings at some point in time. So that's generally how I saw it. It was certainly creepy, obviously, again, growing up, seeing Robin Williams in such a different kind of part that I am not used to seeing it. It was definitely different. And so that alone was scary because truly, he's one of our greatest performers ever in anything. Everything he does is good. He does stand-up comedy. He does comedy. He does drama. He does Law and Order SVU, and it's one of the most recognizable episodes in the whole series. So everything he does is good, and so he is good. This movie lives for him. I don't think it would be remembered or well regarded in any way, shape, or form were it not starring Robin Williams in such a different kind of part. And that's perfectly fine for what this movie is. As a psychological thriller, it's pretty good. It's really slow. The ending is very strong. It's shot very well. It's got pieces. There. I wouldn't necessarily say that I think it needs nowadays it needs like 30 more minutes to breathe and tell a better story. I think it's rushed in the storytelling elements. I think I equate it to Maniac that we did, where there's some good stuff there based on what you're trying to do, but you're really relying on the good performance of a really big star.
David, what are your first thoughts?
I thought this was fairly good, but like you said, Garrett, it didn't quite. I don't feel like it was quite special. It didn't really push above a certain level for me. Williams is really good as usual. I mean, like I think, like you said, Williams could do everything from drama, like sad drama, to uplifting stuff. He could do a kids comedy, and then he could do like a really dark black comedy as well. He could do anything. He was such a gifted performer. Came across, even though he had such a wild energy on as a stand-up comedian, right? He had such a honest authenticity that on screen just always worked, whether it was Good Will Hunting or Dead Poet Society, or whether it was something really weird and zany, there's a lot of movies towards the end of his career where he's just kind of like, like the movie itself doesn't work, but Robin always gave 100%. And in this movie, he really took advantage of the darkness here. Williams could take that sort of warm, confident voice that he had and make it feel sunken and made it feel unsure, made it feel it felt like he was afraid of himself, as a character. Everyone else in this is serviceable, but it's a one-man show, this film. Everybody else is kind of does, fills their roles fine. There are a lot of fun, like, oh hey, there's that guy. There's Clark Gregg. There's what is it, Jim Rash? Is that his name? You know, little things you can spot along the way. The story
Eric
is creepy
LaSalle.
Eric LaSalle, which is great to see Eric LaSalle. Um, Story was creepy. It was unsettling. There's a few moments that are like, oh, I didn't expect that. Which we can spoil later if we want. I
Yeah, this
appreciate.
movie's 20 some odd years old. We can spoil it.
I do appreciate there was I got really fixated. There was some subtle symbology going on with the color white that I got kind of fixated on for most of the movie that kind of might have taken me out at times. But in the end, I think it was a good film, not necessarily a great film. I think they could have gone a little further with with the idea, but overall, I don't necessarily regret watching it. What about you, Josh? This was your first time viewing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure I can't remember watching it, but I've never really wanted to. That's what I got to open up with is that I was not thrilled about this pick. Sorry to our audience who voted for it. Not because I like thought it would be a bad movie, but the whole thing, the whole movie, just irks me. Um, Robin Revisiting Robin's movies are still kind of difficult for me.
Yeah.
To really get lost in them still.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also just the general concept of it about this guy experiencing depression and anxiety and clearly something much deeper, something a bit more sociopathic as it goes on. But you know, there's so much of this movie where you like feel bad for Psy. And that is an upsetting feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
I just have never really wanted to watch it. So here we are. And I can report that I think my intuition was correct there. The movie did not like feel good. It was fairly upsetting throughout the whole thing, but Robin is extremely good in it. And I think you were the one who said it, Garrett. Movie, there's no 1 hour photo without him. The rest of the movie is kind of just okay, I think. The supporting cast is adequate. There's nothing that's really like amazing from them. The family even is kind of I almost felt like I needed more from them to understand the relationship better, this more parasocial relationship between
Yeah.
Psy and the family. So there's stuff there going on that I would have liked more out of, but everything that Robin is doing, he is delivering a performance that is both creepy and sympathetic, and it gets more creepy and less sympathetic throughout.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool to see him do, and just knowing what he was doing at this time, this was part of a small collection of some other kind of creepy roles he was taking on to kind of challenge
Mm-hmm.
himself a little bit is what I've understood. Uh, and this is one of those, and it's creepy. I don't know, but it doesn't go over into scary so much for me, or even why it's considered Halloweeny or
Yeah, I don't
horror-y at
know.
all.
Yeah, it's funny. We threw this one on the list. It was sort of suggested in a big group of movies, and we threw this one on the list. And I didn't really think there was much chance that 1 hour photo would get there. I didn't really think twice of it, and then it just kind of kept moving through the rack through
Yeah.
the ranks, and here we are. So I appreciate it because it's nice to have a good variety for so many scares, or for and there's different kinds of ways to be scared. And this one does explore this person who you kind of want to be on his side at the beginning because he seems lonely, and you just kind of want people to include him and include him. But yeah, as it goes on, he just, by the end, you're saying, no, don't do that side. And you're thinking like, please, he's like, this is going to only go bad. And then he gets worse and worse and worse. And then by the end, you're really not on his side.
This movie follows the wrong person for it to be a real horror movie, I think. The
Yes,
real horror comes from Connie Nielsen and her character. If you follow her and
Mhm.
follow this movie from her perspective, she is struggling. She's having marital problems that she's trying to, she doesn't know about, but there's
Mhm.
definitely some problems there. She's trying to raise her son, trying to have a good life. She goes and talks to this photo guy and he seems sad, but she's just really nice to him. And, watching this movie, my fiance was like, that's the scary part is
Mhm.
as a
Yeah,
woman,
agree.
just being nice to someone sometimes makes you create a situation where it's misinterpreted just because you're being nice. And so you follow that thread instead.
Mhm.
And then, these moments, they have terror, right? Think about that moment where you see Sai take a picture with her and he's having his fantasy of like, oh yeah, yeah. But what if that's one of the builds where nobody sees Sai take that picture and they just are flipping through their photos and it's like, what? Who is this? Why is there a picture of Psy in there? And then they go like, "Hey, why is
Mhm.
this in there?" And he's like, "Oh, well, you had one more left, so I just took it." Then it builds from there. That is scary to see him evolve from
Because
that. But
then too, yeah,
then you
with
don't get the Robin Williams performance.
no, that's true. But then you can flip. You could, when you flip the perspective like that, it allows you to take advantage of the expect what people expect from Robin Williams, which is like wholesome and folksy. Or I mean, folksy might be the wrong word, but he could play that part and play an unsuspecting villain who's then revealed later in the movie to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
You'd have to do some trickery with what exactly he does to torment these people, but then you could have that big reveal of his wall and and all that stuff, and that would be that could be really interesting. So I think you're right. I think there is a perspective change that would make this scarier. But I guess looking at what the director said, it's like the main inspiration for this is Taxi Driver, is the idea of someone sort of going through that loneliness and the effect that childhood trauma can have on you long term, that type of stuff. I guess that's the story, but I don't feel like even that is necessarily executed as well as it could be. So it's one other thing. I
It's
think solid
not.
idea, not great execution.
No, that's the ultimate issue with any kind of movie, I think, that tries to use the for lack of a better word, villain as the
Mhm.
main character, is that, how are you gonna keep the audience with them? And even up toward the end when he has broken into the hotel room and taken these people hostage, when you break down why he's doing it, you're like, well, they're doing a they're bad people too, aren't they?
Yeah,
So they still try to keep you on his side even in that way.
yeah.
That's kinda like icky at that point.
Hmm. Hmm.
He's essentially trying to bust this guy, who's cheating on his wife, and you're like, "Well, somewhere in there was an admiral thought, I guess."
Yeah, and he tried to do it a sort of like subversive way,
He
and
did,
it
and
didn't have
that's
the effect he wanted,
I
and it
wanted
just pushed him further.
I wanted to talk about that part because that was interesting to me. He Yes, so Sai's relationship with these people is that he knows them through their photos, really. He
Hmm.
really just knows, I forget Nina?
Nina
Is that
York.
her name?
Nina, yeah.
Nina and Jake,
Well,
because
there you
they're the
go.
ones who should show up the most. But he feels like he knows the whole family through these photos. And so when he finds out through another customer's photos, which I gotta say is a fun twist,
Yes.
that the husband is cheating on his wife with another woman. I'm also laughing at them getting those photos taken and developed. I'm
It
sure
was
that that
it
happened a
was a
lot
different
back then,
time,
but
yeah.
just wildly stupid.
A different time.
Anyway,
You assumed you
why
had
would you
some
do
level
that?
of anonymity.
Yeah. And he decides, well, I'm gonna give these pictures to Nina. So he slips them into her photos and then he goes to spy on them. And when she doesn't react, this man says, "What is wrong with these people?"
Yeah.
Mhm,
He thinks he's on the moral high ground. And
mhm,
that's when it got a little interesting to me,
mhm,
where he thinks he's so right
mhm. He
that there
thinks
must
he's
be something wrong with her that, oh,
and
why would she
and
not freak out on him?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complex reasons for that, and the thing is, like you said, if the family themselves felt more developed is even a tough word. If I just feel like if they were written slightly better, because no
No, I think
pun
you're right. They should be
pun
more
very much
developed.
intended. They're kind of a stock family. And they even have like the most generic fight towards the beginning of the movie. Like there's not a lot to. They're like you're neglectful. I don't have the money, Janet, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was very paint by numbers couple issues.
Well, and that's
But
where I feel
yeah,
like they
it,
could, if they
yeah.
would have given you more time,
Mhm.
because if you're going to explore the childhood trauma route and have you,
Maybe it should have been 2-hour photo.
if you're if you're going to, make me feel empathy or sympathy for this villain and a lot of horror movies do that. They make you feel uncomfortable, like you shouldn't feel this way about this villain, but like I get it. But I didn't get any of that. I didn't know enough about him. I knew that he was kind of by
Mhm.
himself and lonely and didn't really have anything. But you
You don't know
don't
why,
you
though.
don't explore his background, and so I
No, not
don't
till the
I
very
don't
end.
feel
No.
the same kind of, and even at the very end it's not enough. I would have
No,
rather
because
It's
seen what
implied.
he
Yeah.
went through in some way to make me understand
Mhm.
him a little bit more. What is the moral high ground? Was his mom, he clearly had some childhood trauma stuff that he went through, but what element of that plays in there? And like
Mhm.
it wasn't thought out enough in that
Yeah.
regard to again give you that even kind of empathy towards him that they want you to
Mhm.
feel in order to feel like on his side.
yeah.
Yeah, it's more implied, and it's hinted at, but
It
never
is implied. He does
specified.
not expressly say. It is implied at the end in the police investigation that his parents sexually abused him with child pornography, which if they had developed this a little more
It.
or showed it or given it to us a little a little earlier in the film, I think there's so much there because think of this man who just had this breakdown about revealing that his parents took photos of him in compromising positions and then partner with earlier in the film when he says people don't take photos of things they want to forget, and then think of the psychosis of that.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is interesting character work
Mhm.
that I have to think about because they didn't put it in the movie.
I know. Something about I want to talk to a little bit to transition. I want to talk about the narration a little bit because I love that if you just isolated the narration of this movie, it just sounds like Robin Williams describing the fun and beauty of photography.
Yeah.
Because the narration's so unsinister, but
Yeah.
obviously contextually in the movie, he's doing kind of weirdly sinister things while he's talking about it. But yeah, I really liked all those little narration inserts by Robin Williams. Those are nice.
See, I didn't like
They
that
were
because
interesting,
they didn't
but
do enough. It didn't even if you set this story up in a different way. He's caught by the police, he's going through his interrogation, and then he's telling his version of the story. It's an unreliable narrator. Everything I'm going through makes it feel different or whatever. But it's not like
Right.
the narration just seems so out of place and I don't know where it comes from. So
Yeah.
that part didn't work for me either. If it had been at the end him going through his confession and telling the story, I
If
think I
it
would have
yeah.
added more to it, but it was just there.
It doesn't really
mm.
play like that. It just plays like internal monologue.
Yeah, this is adding more to my thoughts as we go through this
That's good.
because
You can lower it more
I
and more.
see it. They fall into there's a narrator trap here. That we've talked about this before, and you can take the narrator out, and I still don't love that they open with Cy in the police interrogation room because now I know he at least gets caught. Like, and that bummed me out immediately.
Mhm.
I don't know because I don't know what's going to happen at the end. Does he die? I'm like thinking it could be crazy, and now I'm thinking, well, whatever happens, he just gets caught. So that's a bummer
Mhm.
that I know that now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could have been wrong, and they did a twist or something, but they didn't. I was right, and it was just that. Um, but then it also presents that unreliable narrator thing, which I didn't think about. Kind of makes the whole story questionable when you consider the source. But then also, you can't frame it really as his story and then do show us parts of the family life
Right.
because he wouldn't know that.
Right. Unless all of that family stuff's in his head.
And maybe it is, I don't know.
Because more than once we're shown little fantasies that he has, like little private fantasies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we do. We like the inside, like you're really uncomfortable because you're like, oh my god, he's broken into their house and now he's
Mhm.
watching TV and then
He's
that
dropping a
was
deuce
not
in
real.
their toilet. Yeah.
That was uncomfortable.
This is the second movie we've had uncomfortable deuces. And I don't like it.
No. Also, I didn't like that bathroom. I just got to say, I don't Sometimes it can be too fancy for pooping. And that one was like, I don't want to poop in here.
Exactly. This is not conducive.
It's not conducive for deucing. Put that on a t-shirt.
All right, let's make a hard transition here.
Was that
Can I
not
talk
hard
a little
enough?
bit about something I don't talk about very often? All right, I want to talk about cinematography and costuming because
Costuming for this movie. Okay.
early on. So this is one of the things I appreciate about this movie. There's not a lot, but there's two key things. One of them is Robin Williams' performance. The other one is this. I picked up early on because early on, like we talked about in that interrogation room, incredibly white room, right? And throughout the movie, there's a heavy use of the color white. Cy himself mostly wears a white dress, white shirt, polo, blazer, whatever, sort of cream colored pants, white dress pants. He drives a white car. His apartment is basically all blank white. And I really think that the use, I mean, because we're talking about photography here, and that lack of color gives you a little subconscious window into who Cy is. He is he's undeveloped. He's blank. He does not have anyone in his life, and he feels empty like an undeveloped photo. That's why he attaches himself to this family, because he doesn't have anything. He has no feeling for anyone. So he needs it in his life, because even at his own home, there's nothing there. It's a sparse house. The only color in his house is his wall of photos with the Yorkins. So using white both in the cinematography with the color, with the save mark being all mostly white, his uniform only having that little bit of blue, his personal clothes never wearing colors, only wearing drab and off colors. It really gives you, I think, that little bit of, I think it's a great way to express that idea of loneliness, of emptiness. Because white can mean a lot of things. White can mean, purity or innocence. But here, I think they used it to mean that emptiness, that underdeveloped sense of social skills, or however you want to, however many different ways you want to break that down. But yeah, it was something that just stood out to me, because as soon as we started the movie, and I'm like, 1 hour photo, okay, photo, and he's talking about colors and bringing out the right blues and the right greens and all that stuff, and then I'm noticing the contrast of this all white store, and when he dreams, he has a dream sequence later, and you guys may remember is the part where his eyes bleed. In that
Scariest part of the
dream,
movie.
he's in pure white, in a pure white store, right? That to me was, again, where it really sank in. So I don't know if you guys really, I don't know if you guys really picked up on that as an overt thing, but I picked up on that, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, again, this movie is definitely an art movie, and there's a lot of thought that goes into that, and costuming, storytelling when it comes to things that you have to kind of pick up on. And if you can pick up on it, then you're on this certain level of filmography or photography, or however you want to look at it. And good for you, you picked up on the clues. Yay, you get a B. No, that's mean, and I don't mean it in a mean way. I just feel like sometimes, again, you put all of that effort and all of that thought into that, and then your story is still not as good as your production value, and your production value is very good. I did notice that it's shot very well, it's thought very well. There's a lot of technical pieces that went into there, and it should be praised, and it was very good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't make up for some of the detractions, but sorry, Josh.
Imagine how good your movie would have been had you given me a little bit better movie.
Oh man. Yeah,
sorry, Josh.
We're gonna get killed for this, aren't we?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people
like it. I don't even think I'm gonna give it a low rating at the end. We'll
No.
see, but I don't know. Anyway, I tried to find some more information, or more any kind of discussion analysis about this movie, and I found, okay, actually 2 things. One, did you guys rent this digitally? I'm assuming you did.
Yes.
I found it completely for free on YouTube on someone's account that's been there for 4 years.
Beautiful.
So that's fair. I know, I had the same thought, but I rented it and then I saw it.
It's not even in 10 parts.
No, it's one whole. I think it was like an hour plus. Yeah. Anyway, but I did find an interview with Robin and the director,
Mhm.
whose name I can't remember, and every time this happens, I can't load anything while I'm talking. Mark Romanek, on an episode of Charlie Rose on PBS. Unfortunately, I had to watch Charlie Rose to get through this, but it happened. This was weird, y'all. I felt it was weird. I'm gonna drop it in. I'm gonna send it to you guys later. So
Put it in the show
if you
notes.
want to watch, any of it, you can. But this was in 2002, and it's 34 minutes, I think, long, and it takes several minutes before they even attempt to discuss the movie because Robin won't stop being Robin.
Mm.
And Charlie Rose is giggling like a little girl.
Yeah.
He's maybe the worst journalist I've ever seen with sit with Robin Williams, because he spends 34 minutes trying to riff with Robin, and he doesn't do it well.
Yeah.
And Robin just doesn't listen and just kind of keeps riffing.
Mm.
And I swear, the poor director's, you can see in his eyes, he just wants to talk about his movie so bad. And of the 34 minutes, they don't spend many talking about
I
it.
believe that. Robin is hard to wrangle if you don't know.
He's hard to wrangle. Charlie was not interested. He seemed to only be interested in egging him on to do things. So that was interesting. But anyway, there was some insight in there. Robin was interested in challenging roles during this time in his career. This was one of those things where he saw the script through his agent. His agent got a hold of him, sent it to him. He was like, "Yeah, I want to do this." The director was not looking necessarily for. In fact, he said he wasn't planning on a big name star at all. He was hoping to get just some really good indie actor or something, and they landed with Robin Williams. So there was talk in there about the hair. Garrett, you mentioned the hair earlier. He wanted to have some kind of physical transformation for Robin for the sake of the audience, so that they wouldn't just see Robin Williams, but they didn't want to, make him look crazy different either. So they settled on this kind of, I don't know what you describe it. He's kind of homely looking. He's got
bleach blonde
just like
hair,
little wisps of bleach
wispy,
blonde hair.
Yeah.
He doesn't
maybe
look
white.
fully like himself. So that's
Yeah.
kind of interesting to hear them talk about. But
Yeah, he
then,
looks, older here than he actually was.
yeah. You get a little bit from the director about his inspiration for the script and all that. But the riffs, man, you got it. I don't want to talk about them too much because we need to wrap this show up. But he riffs on 9/11 like crazy, which had just happened.
No.
Robin.
It's not super negative, but I
Yeah.
mean, Charlie, this is around the time Robin's getting back into stand-up, and Charlie asks him, why did you decide to get back into stand-up now? And the answer is basically 9/11, because he went to a thing that Whoopi Goldberg had done, and he said that like everyone was like very needed something to get. They needed a vent. They needed someone to go out and talk about what's happening. And Robin was like, I felt like people needed entertainment, so I went out. So that's why I'm doing this. So it was kind of cool. Yeah, very fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting. And during this time, you mentioned it earlier. So during this time, this is when he did this. Insomnia came out this same year. Like a few months. There's like a few months difference between this and Insomnia. And then he also did The Final Cut. Filmed it around this time. It came out in 2004, which is another sort of psychological thriller that he did. Also weirdly based on photos, film, that type of thing. In that movie, it's like a sci-fi thriller. Like everybody has cameras like in their eyes, and he edits them. Have you guys ever seen The Final Cut?
No,
he's like
I
he
remember
like
it.
helps edit their videos.
Didn't look very good.
I do not remember that one at all.
No, I don't know if it got high marks either.
Wow, no. Yeah, it's a very interesting time. I mean, he says something about he's 51 at the time, and he's just looking at all different things.
Good for him.
Range
is
interesting
good.
point in his career. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and you look throughout his career, he had a wide range of stuff he would do, and he went through interesting phases, but he also he never seemed too proud to be in anything.
Yeah. All right, let's do our final thoughts and ratings here on this movie. I'll start, I guess. respect the movie, I think is where I'm at, because there is something good there. And Robin really elevates it into something more because of the life he brings to this character. I really think this movie is about watching what he does as this character, and less so about everything else going on.
Mhm.
And so I think I'm going to settle on maybe a 3 for me, because the movie itself is probably a 2, 2.5, and then Robin delivers that extra bump. That's what I'm going to do.
Similarly, I'm gonna say, like I said earlier, it's good. It's not great. Williams's performance does kind of push it past the 3-star mark for me, but not quite up to 4. So I'm gonna say 3.5. I think that's about as good as I can give it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good production value there. The director clearly knew what he wanted this movie to be, which is why he transformed Robin Williams whenever he decided there. You don't want the Robin Williams of it all to change your focus. And so, again, respect to that, respect to the detail, and then the performance from Robin is also there, and a bunch of good ideas. There's a bunch of good ideas laid out there. They're just not quite connected in a way that I connected with. And so for me, I also agree with Josh. It's 3 stars.
Yeah.
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 And really,
I'm glad this movie was made. But
yeah, and made probably the last year it could be made, because we were, you talk about
it's
a
a
really
joke in
dated
that
idea.
movie. It is
Yeah.
a joke, and she mentions I'm thinking about buying a digital camera, and he says, "Oh God, don't do that. I'll be out of a job."
Yeah.
So the movie's aware, and so that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a dated concept now for how we understand photos.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't do it like that today. Okay, let's get into the Letterboxd game. See what our Letterboxd community has rated this movie. Who's going first this week?
So first this week is Josh.
Okay.
You are in last place. 4 behind me, 3 behind Garrett. So,
here's some of the most popular reviews on Letterboxd. 3.5 stars from Nick. 1 hour photo is Robin Williams' one-man show where he offered one of the most heart-wrenching performances of his career. 3.5 stars. Belly aches from this one. Robin never fails to deliver the laughs.
Such a jerk.
3.5 stars. Barb at my local lab would never.
Oh no, yeah, she's too good for that.
3.5 stars. Robin Williams wasn't very funny in this.
Oh gosh.
And then finally, 4 stars. On second thought, maybe I will private my Instagram account.
Oh, that's good.
Modern day.
Yeah.
Modern day version.
Stalker on there. Anyway, I gotta say, those were selected reviews, but I felt like there was a lot of 3.5s in it. There was a 4 at the end there. I'm gonna guess that this might be a 3.2.
Okay. And Garrett, what do you think?
I think that's a pretty good guess. I also think that there's a chance. I'll 3.3.
Ooh, okay.
Boxing.
I'll go a little higher. I think this is the most we talked about the other week. I think we talked about the most 3.5 movie. I think this is going to be also a 3.5.
Interesting.
3.4 or 3.5, 3.3, and 3.2 for me. Let's see what we're gonna deal with this week. This week we have a direct hit.
Ooh.
And it's David, 3.5.
Oh, I'm surprised, honestly.
There was a lot of 3.5s, and it was even, I guess.
I guess it's just this is a very Letterboxian movie. I guess I'm not too surprised.
Perhaps so. I fear that we're in the minority.
I really did think, though, that you guys, I was like, well, darn it, 3.2 3.3 was actually where I wanted to be. But I thought to myself, you guys were probably in the right spot, and I was going to go too high. It's a direct hit for me. That puts me at 20 on the year.
Hey.
Garrett just behind at 17, and then Josh bringing up the rear at 14, but honestly, just a couple direct hits away. So that's my first win since White Men Can't Jump. Garrett has been dominating the So Many Scares season. He had gotten all 3 previous So Many Scares movies. So as we go into our final film of So Many Scares, it's still anybody's ball game.
Yes, exactly. We will be doing our final episode of So Many Scares of this year on Halloween night, right? That the plan?
Ooh.
I think we're gonna
Or
try.
no, not Halloween night, right?
Or at least
Yeah.
we'll at least release it that
Oh
night.
no, we could, yeah, whatever.
We
Just
can do
shut up,
whatever we
Josh.
want. We're in
Yeah,
charge of
we own the
this.
show. We own. Yes, we can do it wherever we want. But we do have one more, and we're going to do because I mean we don't have any other place to announce it, right?
No, I don't think so.
We're gonna talk about the Blair Witch Project.
I don't know what to think.
Scary.
I'm actually afraid of this one.
Scary.
I was afraid of
I'm
the
actually afraid.
I was afraid of the Sixth Sense, but I've never seen Blair Witch because I was afraid of the Sixth Sense. And I think this one's scarier. So
I'm wondering if the Scooby Doo parody of the Blair Witch is going to ruin me at all for this.
Probably.
I'm sure
I don't
most of those are pretty accurate to the original.
You guys seen the Scooby Doo Blair Witch Project
No.
parodies? They're pretty good. Pretty funny.
I'll have to look that one up. Yeah, no, the Blair Witch Project has always scared me. I still think it's a great. It's there's gonna be a lot to talk about. That's such a fun movie in how it was made, how it was released, the aftermath of it. It's great.
There's gonna be some good
it's gonna be a fun time.
extra content to that beyond
Yes.
just talking about the movie itself.
For sure. So we will do that, and then we will ease into 1999 Vember and party like it's 1999 all month long. So we got that to look forward to. But that'll be it for us on this episode. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app to keep up with our new episodes. You can also check us out on Instagram at So Many Sequels Pod. We also are on Threads under that same handle. Tell us what you think of the show, what you're watching for spooky season. We want to know. And then finally, you can head to SoManySequels.com and see a list or find all of our previous episodes. You can listen to them all on there. Fun, easy. Everybody loves to do it.
Please do so.
So you should. Okay.